Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Thanks for joining us as we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam.
What's up?
And our very own $6 million man, Mr. Bob Leahy.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, we'd like to thank you all for joining us as we recap and review Chuck Norris's weekly takedown of evildoers. Today, we're going to recap and review Season 7, Episode 11, On the Border, where Walker and the crew take on a corrupt sheriff and a smuggling ring. But before we grab another slice of cake from the Hope House's folding table, join us as we pull up a stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Hey guys, it's been a while.
I'll say it has.
It's been a while.
Been a while.
Sorry, I don't see myself.
Well. That said, I think we need a beer.
That sounds pretty good. Now, guys, let's do some word association, okay? I'm going to give you 3 words and tell me what you think. Bob, you're going to go first, all right?
Okay.
Simcoe, Saws, difference.
The ocean.
Nice. All right.
I have no
Adam,
idea why.
what do you think of when you hear those words?
Instantly, I think about the beer of the week, Opposites Attract, from the Bearded Iris Brewery here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nice. Bob, you were really close.
Yeah. What does the bar and grill menu ponder about Opposites Attract?
Do opposites attract? This IPA aims to test the theory with a Saaz and Simcoe pairing. Saaz brings tamed herbal, earthy spice to Simcoe's juicy watermelon candy and strawberry peach exuberance for a pint that's unique and multi-layered.
What is the difference? Is that a hops too?
I guess Saaz must be a hop.
Well,
Am I pronouncing it right? Saaz?
I think we're going
I think you got it right there.
Okay.
That's the one.
Saws? Well, I guess we'll be the judge on this. If it's multi-layered, let's pop this bad boy open.
I love the can art. It's beautiful.
It's pretty psychedelic. Oh, I'm getting an aroma
Ooh, yeah.
of watermelon,
There it is.
but only because they said watermelon. It smells like the feed store that I get my chicken feed at.
Oh, dude.
I think that's the herbal.
No,
that might not-
Because it's like, it smells like hay and like
Dude.
grass food in there.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad smell.
I always had very fond memories of the smell of Agway. You guys have Agways down where you are?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like a feed store.
I mean, this is pretty chill. I kind of taste the watermelon, maybe, but it's not overbearing, right?
Yeah, I would say, these two opposites, they met somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Walker and Alex,
All
Two-
right.
two opposites that just attract and work well together,
I mean, I would say like Alex's outfits in this episode. One is really tight fitting, and another one looks like a jacket that belongs in a Talking Heads concert.
It looked like the sail from a boat. Okay, well, we've got our beers, guys, right? And yep. Evan, you actually sent this link to us earlier. It's a map of beer consumption in the United States.
Yes.
And, you may not think that is related to Walker, Texas Ranger, but let's kind of dig into the states that have the largest beer consumption. And,
what are you getting at? What are you trying to say?
I'm not saying anything, man.
The scale bottoms out at 19.7 gallons per year, and it maxes out at 41.5 gallons per year.
That's got to be in the millions, right?
No, that's per average. That's per person.
Per person.
Oh no.
So, on the lower end of the scale, you'd kind of expect some places like Utah, for instance, to have pretty low beer consumption.
Not in last place, though.
Due to, say, religious exemptions. But some of the other places are interesting, like New York, But that's probably because New York has literally hundreds of millions of people in New York City and everywhere else. So
you're surprised that it's a low consumption level.
It's down near the bottom per person, but that's because there's so many people in the state and not everyone's going to be drinking. Okay. So then on the opposite end of the spectrum, it maxes out at 41.5 gallons of beer per year per person. And that is in Montana, where that's the opposite effect of New York, where there are so few people that a few jolly souls can really tip the scales. And but one other place where I think Bob might be the one tipping the scales is the Granite State itself.
Yeah, number 1, 41.5. It's good to see us coming in first. Although, full disclosure, I haven't lived in New Hampshire in a few years now. But I'm just over the border. I can see it from my apartment.
Well, you said you drive over the border to get cheap booze, right?
I went to a cookout today in New Hampshire, too.
Let's just get to the chase here. Do people run beer over the border of New Hampshire and Massachusetts?
The local sheriff might get a cut.
Yeah. Local
Yeah, I mean, it's probably safe to say, yeah. I think now it's mainly Newport cigarettes get run across the border.
Oh, okay.
Because those are illegal in Massachusetts because they're menthol. So.
Okay. So those are definitely smuggled across the border.
100%. I've seen people buying thousands of dollars worth of menthol cigarettes in New Hampshire. Cash. Yeah, they're smuggling them over the border.
And has the Lowell sheriff, has he been like, hey, Bob, you could make probably about 16 times what you make a year if you were running these menthol cigarettes across the border?
I mean, I should probably look into it.
You guys say, no, man, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to risk my life.
Well, I don't know. It's
Breaking
worked
Bad
out pretty well for our boy here. Well, okay, maybe not.
Well, we'll get into the episode in a minute, but there are definitely some real life parallels here to this beer consumption map.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's probably a lot of people running all sorts of stuff across the New Hampshire-Massachusetts border.
Absolutely.
But, dude, New Hampshire may be number 1 in the United States for most beer per person. 41.5 gallons a person a year. Holy moly.
It's funny to think of beer in gallons.
Yeah. That's like 3/4 of a gallon a week.
Is it really?
It's like a 12 pack a week.
Oh my God. Per person? How is it even? Yeah, I think Adam's onto something with the cross-border thing, because there's no way someone could drink that much every week, let alone that be the average.
I don't know. It's kind of crazy. But Texas is also in the top 10. It comes in 9th at 31.9 gallons per person in the state of Texas. So,
I mean, and half of that's Lone Wolf McQuaid just crushing Pearl beers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, gotta be.
Anyway, I guess that was interesting. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Well, up next, we got to hit the socials. We heard from the one and only Marshall Teague on Twitter, and he might have been a little disappointed with our review of Last of a Breed Part 2. Evan, do you want to read what we got here?
Mr. Teague says, nothing like getting down to the nitty-gritty behind the Walker Texas Ranger episode, Last of a Breed Part 2, via Roundhouse Pod, a funny take on a Western etiquette, all while sipping a Bjorn Sinner IPA from Branch and Blade Brewery. Perfect pairing. For the love of one-liners, a 3?
That's tough.
Yeah, he did an amazing job as the bad guy. Unfortunately, it rated a 3 out of 10 on the Roundhouse scale here.
I mean, I'll throw it out there. If it were an episode of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, it would have been up there as a 10 for me.
Okay.
But I think our justification was that it was an episode of Walker Texas Ranger, and there was no Walker Texas Ranger in it.
Yeah.
But he was great in it.
He was great.
It was good.
Yeah, it was the flashback Western thing that really brought us down, Marshall. Yeah. Definitely was not you, that's for sure.
Also, question, did he get a Bjorn Sinner himself, or is he just remarking on us?
Or maybe he did. I mean, he's
well connected.
He's Rudd Kilgore. If he just says, hey, Branch and Blade, you send that thing my way, they're going to send him like a whole case of beer.
They probably would, man.
But shout out to Marshall Teague. You rule. So sorry for the tough love. We had a good time talking about it, though. Anybody out there who wants to remark on something we missed or how terrible this podcast is, if you don't want to hit us up on Instagram or socials, you can email us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. And that's just what Maurice Winters did.
Subject matter so good. I mean, say no more, right? He says, hey guys, I really love the podcast. It's so fun and laid back. While most podcasts about TV shows feel like a chore to listen to after a few episodes. I was too young during its original run, but I love the show and the craziness. The final season blows, though. I just listened to the Return of LaRue episode. That's a fun, crazy villain. And you guys were talking about the opera that LaRue was blasting in prison. That song probably sounded familiar because it was a ripoff of Shawshank Redemption. That's the song that Andy Dufresne plays for the prisoners during one of the most classic scenes ever. It's Mozart's opera, The Marriage of Figaro. So that's Figaro, I assume. Yeah. And there's a blatant ripoff of Dirty Harry, too. Oh, we heard that from another superfan.
Yeah.
Where LaRue pays a guy to beat the crap out of him, just like Scorpio paid a huge black guy to beat him up and framed Harry. It's a ripoff or homage. Yeah. LOL, keep up the good work. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that in most of these cases, ripoff applies more than homage. But
Probably. But I mean, we like to think the latter, right?
But, if it works once, why not?
I think there's like a quote from John Lennon that he says, good artists copy and great artists steal. So there's something to that. I mean, even in the folk tradition or songwriting tradition, people are always lifting little riffs and lines. And that's what Walker does with cinematic history here. Well, we, in our last podcast, lamented the fact that we had only 2 written reviews over the whole 2 years that we have done this podcast. And we pleaded with people to please leave us a written review, good or bad, on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And we now have, as of this week, a review in 2022.
Oh, thank God. KPZ writes, the WTR lover's dream. This podcast is a roundhouse kick to the face of all other podcasts ever created. This show brings you back to a time when television didn't bother with complicated plot lines or morally ambiguous heroes. The good guys kicked butt, and the bad guys got their butts kicked. No other details necessary.
Amen.
It brings a white buffalo tear to my eye. Well done, boys. That's nice. It's very, very nice. Although we want some bad ones, so let's keep them coming. We need the bad ones.
5 stars. That's all I'll take. I'll take 5 stars every day.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you, KPZ, for ending our drought. These reviews help other people find the podcast. And, we're just trying to spread the love of Walker, Texas Ranger across the universe.
All right. Well, we've got a lot to cover this week. So let's get on into it. If you're watching along at home and don't want any spoilers, hit that pause button and watch Season 7, Episode 11, On the Border. And then come right on back to us, please. Well, welcome back. Let's dig into this beast. This episode originally aired on December 12th, 1998. And it opens on a familiar home.
Yeah, the Hope House. Is that like Alex's charitable, what would you call it?
Battered woman shelter.
It's,
so don't call it that anymore.
It's a catch-all. Yeah. It's a catch-all.
it's for anybody in need, really. And it actually, we should pull up the acronym because it said it on the sign.
It stands for Help Our People Excel.
That is a catch-all.
Yeah,
Who are their people?
Doesn't matter.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone. In the case of this festival, I'm not exactly sure what was happening, but
they're like having like a cookout, like party at the Hope House. I guess it's in the backyard because we kind of get this establishing shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a backyard that probably is not physically possible to be behind the Hope House, but we're just going to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a banging party when they've got clowns, and they've got 2 of them. They're creepy AF.
Yeah, that was pretty scary.
Also, super confused Because if the Hope House is meant to put the focus on people trying to get their feet back under them, why is the entire focus of this party around a horseshoe competition between CD and Trevette and Walker and Alex?
Yeah, the core four are playing a game of horseshoes that seems to go on forever.
Yeah.
It is like a 3-minute. I looked at it. It was like 3 minutes of them playing horseshoes.
It does go on forever.
Yeah. Let me tell you that those pits are not regulation length either. They're like 10 feet apart. Come on.
Alex bullseyes one, and everyone's like, "Yeah, she nailed it. She got it great." And then it's Trevette's turn to throw the horseshoe, and he totally misses. Right?
Oh yeah, he misses multiple times. Yeah.
It's like, dude, he was on a football team. He should be bullseyeing womp rats here.
Yeah, he's the only one with any athletic ability, really.
They're called ringers, by the way. It's not a bullseye. Okay. You get a ringer in horseshoes.
Okay, all right.
Bob, I know you missed out on a cookout today. Are you really feeling it?
Yes. Well, no, he did miss out. Fuming. He got to watch one.
I did. Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
You didn't even have to drive home.
Now here's the question. I assume we've all been part of a cookout where there was horseshoes, or perhaps it was cornhole, very similar setup. Has anyone ever taken part in a competition of a backyard game where a crowd formed around what was happening and people were cheering?
Well, you don't know. They probably bet big money on the game.
Like throwing down money on the table.
Exactly. And the money was going to go to the Hope House. Oh. Okay.
Well, they left that plot point out, man.
I'm filling it in, and that's why they were so excited to watch this 3-minute game of horseshoes. So Trevette biffs, and everyone's laughing at him. CD especially is really rubbing it in Trevette's face, right?
Yeah.
Then CD, he's old as hell, right? He gets up and he gets a ringer.
Yeah.
Everybody but Trevette does, and then it's Trevette's turn again. Because this thing is like 3 minutes long. And we get to see people do multiple turns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And every time Trevette gets up, everyone behind the pit mocks him and like runs for cover.
Yeah, gets out of the way.
They're like hiding behind hay bales so they don't get hit by his stray horseshoe because he has no control.
Right. Again, I would argue that there really is no character arc for Trevette here. Right. Come on now. They're still ribbing him pretty hard here
in the 7th season.
Season 7 here.
Yeah. And he's laughing about it too. He's like, yeah.
Was he though?
Right.
I thought he was getting pretty mad about it.
He was getting upset about it, just like we were. He's like, "Man, really? You're going to go hide behind those hay bales again?" And I was like, "Really? I'm going to see another round of this horseshoe game?"
Right.
Anyway, why are we talking about this?
We've went on just as long about the horseshoe game as the TV show did.
I did have a lot of notes on the horseshoe game. I had a lot of problems with the scene.
I mean, there were certainly some continuity issues where, Trevette throws his first horseshoe, but then they clip back to him and he's got no horseshoes.
Right.
I
mean, yeah. Moving on.
I like Adam's theory that everyone's betting money on this. I also want to paint the picture even further, and that these are all recovering gamblers.
Right. I also want to point out the fact that CD makes a snide comment to Trevette, something to the effect of, well, this isn't how you throw horseshoes in Baltimore.
No.
Baltimore?
Right. I mean, a Texas horseshoe game, very different from anywhere else.
Okay. Well, so really this party was kind of to set up the storyline. This Mexican mother comes over and starts talking to Alex, right?
Yep. She's an old friend of Alex's, and
hashtag old friend.
Yep. And she's super excited because her son, Andy, who is a truck driver, is going to be coming back to Dallas, and he's going to be getting married. He's just got one more long haul to do, and then he'll be coming back and getting married. And we're like, all right, here we go. Episode commences when the hashtag old friend occurs.
Yeah,
right. And, we meet Andy, and he looks like such a great boy. Such a great kid.
And we meet him at the border crossing, and the border agent is checking his big rig for contraband. And it seems like he's come through this crossing a number of times and has a good rapport with the border control agent. And the border control agent just sends him off. You're good to go.
Yeah, he's like, you gonna stop by and see your fiance? And he's like, oh yeah, just long enough to get a meal.
It's kind of like a quick sequence. We get that, and then we flash to the outside, I guess, this diner that his fiance Lupe is working at. She comes out and gives him a sandwich, but they're so enraptured to see each other that they hug each other with the sandwich in between them.
Yeah. Smush, hashtag smush sandwich.
Yeah. So it's like, just...
Hashtag sandwich.
It was, yeah. And so pretty much, I guess this is a regular thing. He's like, I always know how my sandwich got swished because we haven't learned our lesson and just hold the sandwich when we do the hugs.
Such a wholesome relationship.
It was, yeah. And you know what? Even at the high school dances, they have to keep a sandwich length between them. So
Yep. Well, it's a Subway foot long, so it's about 10 inches. Yeah.
So pretty much, wholesome relationship, cute young couple. He gets a sandwich, says, hey, just one more run and I'll have enough money for us to get married.
Sandwich for dinner.
Yeah, he took it for the road. Yeah. Next, we flash forward to kind of like a bridge over like a body of water. It must be a river, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's at night. And we see like 5 cop cars with their lights flashing on this bridge. A bunch of deputies and police in tan uniforms waiting around. And we see Andy's truck come up on this bridge, right? And one of the guys just flashes him down like, hey, time to stop,
So Andy gets out of the truck, and you can tell from his expression that this has happened before in the past. Something's going down. And basically, he gets a lot of pressure from none other than the sheriff of this town. And the sheriff is played by the $6 million man himself, Lee Majors.
And his introduction was great because the deputies actually tell the truck to stop and get Andy to get out of the cab. And then Lee Majors opens up the door to his car and comes out, and it's kind of like, bum, bum, bum. The sheriff has something to say to Andy.
Right. And he basically is like, man, you can make a whole lot more money if you run what I want you to run for me. And Andy's like, I've told you before, I don't want to do anything illegal. And if you ask me again, I'm going to report you to the authorities.
Oh, no.
Bad idea.
And that's the kiss of death because as soon as he says that, the sheriff gives a little nod there to one of his deputies who attaches a magnetic, I almost said bomb, but this is a theatrical bomb, which is basically a black plastic box with a blinking red light and an antenna on it.
Right.
That is the bomb for the television viewer. They stick one of those bombs on his big rig, and as soon as he pulls off, they blow it up. They don't even wait for him to get off the bridge. They just blow him up on the bridge.
Yeah, like and they're all still on the bridge. But also, I thought which was hilarious was when we first meet Andy, the first shot of him at the border. They show his truck, and his truck has like the square sign that says explosives.
Right.
Yeah.
Flammable.
I'm like, this thing's definitely going up.
Yeah, they showed, I think, 3 shots of that before they put the bomb on. So,
Really?
I mean, we got it.
And they said, "Oh, Andy's such a great kid. He's so great." He said, like, "Oh, I love you" to Lupe like 2 times, and I'm like, this guy's gone.
Yeah, toast. Totally toast. This guy's done.
He's not meant for this world. Lee Majors, the sheriff, who apparently is running some sort of drug smuggling ring on the border there, blew him up. You know?
Yeah, stone cold.
What was the one-liner? He had a one-liner
Yeah,
before.
I'm pulling it up. You'd think that they'd wait like an extended period of time before blowing up the big rig that's marked as explosive.
Yeah.
But they probably wait till he's about like
50 feet, maybe?
Yeah, not far.
Like,
they don't flinch. They don't flinch at all. They don't get any shrapnel anywhere. I mean, this big rig just explodes, like completely blows up. And they're just standing there like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Watching it blow.
And right before the sheriff blows it up, Lee Majors, he says, "Son, you said the wrong thing to the wrong man."
There it is. There it is.
Boom. And then they blow this thing up. It looks like they blew up an actual semi on a bridge, too.
Yeah,
right?
I think they did not wait for him to get off the bridge because they had so many pyrotechnics, it had to be over water.
Okay. And they probably were demoing that bridge, I would think, and then use a different one to film the up-close shots on.
I'm not convinced.
I mean, I would think that would hurt the stability of the bridge.
Well, I'm not a civic engineer, but you're probably onto something.
And then later in the episode, we see remains of the truck in the water.
Yeah, that's just good environmental stuff. There, you put stuff in the water, and that's so that a coral reef can form on it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's what they call the Texas coral reef.
Yeah, that's a Texas reef.
Anyway, unbelievable intro to this episode. Explosive, right?
Yeah, for sure. And right before it goes to the credits, you get this really awkward. They're still working out the kinks with superimposing fire over people's faces. And so it can't. It's like non-committal. It keeps going back and forth between the fire and Lee Major's face, and it's like pick one of them or do 50-50. Don't go back and forth.
And he's there just kind of like sinister, like, "That's right, I just did that."
Well, his deputy did. He's got plausible deniability.
Sure. Okay.
So after the credits roll, we're at. I'm going to throw it out there. I think the Hope House is serving as the funeral home. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, it's a catch-all. It does it all. But
Okay.
I think they're doing a little funeral service at the Hope House for Andy. And his mother's like, "Oh, it's so horrible." And instead of them consoling her, they basically tell her that, well, the sheriff report said there were drugs found and he was carrying drugs.
Yeah, Alex tells this to her.
Yeah. This is kind of like Alex holding the battered women's retreat and then shaming everybody around the campfire for not telling their story accurately.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This isn't as bad as that.
Is it?
She harps on it though. She comes even after she's like, the woman's like pouring her heart out. She's like, "Yeah, but you never know. He had drugs on him, and the cops found it, so it has to be true."
He was coming from Mexico, so
The mom was saying, "Oh no, he would never touch drugs or whatever." Alex is just like, "Well, I don't know."
sometimes all it takes is a little bit of drugs in the system, and whew, there you go.
And the mom's like, "No, he never would." And she's like, "Promise me you'll look into it." And then Alex is like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, it's reluctant. It's definitely reluctant.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is what the Hope House is all about. So I'll look into it.
I guess.
Yeah, okay.
They go to CD's Bar and Grill. Nice to see that. And as they enter the bar and grill, they're still discussing Andy's death. They're like CD's like, "Well, seems open and shut to me. They found drugs on him. He was a drug dealer. There you go. He got blown up."
Yeah.
And Alex is like, "Well, you guys are always telling me to trust my gut."
So let's investigate the circumstances behind Andy's death.
And Walker's like, "All right, fine." And he brings Trevette into it. And Trevette's like, "I have no agency here, so sure."
This is them ripping on Trevette again.
Yeah. Pretty much Alex is like, "Well, I'm going to go check on it. Walker, you want to come with me?" And he's like, "Yeah. And Trevette's going to come too." And Trevette's like, "I am?" And Alex goes, "What else better do you got to do?"
Yeah, loser.
Yeah, come on. Guys, give Trevette some love here, man. At least give him a day off, from
You know what,
ripping
though? You know what? At least Trevette doesn't ride in the middle of the truck.
That would have been awesome, actually. Yeah, so pretty much
Squeezed
Walker, Trevette, and Alex all get into the Dodge Ram.
Road trip.
Yep. And they drive on down to the border. It's good times. Meanwhile, the credits are rolling during that bar scene, and some of the credits I see are implying that the Sons of Thunder, they're here.
Yep.
We get to see the Sons of Thunder after their, I guess we could call it their pilot in the TV show, the Sons of Thunder episode.
Yeah, it must be.
So Trent is now running his karate dojo by day and also private investigator business by day.
Right.
He's out doing some recon on somebody, and he's got this super jank camera that he's using to take pictures of a Corvette. And let's face it, he's taking pictures of the Corvette, right? Not the guy in it.
Oh, yeah. He's sizing it up.
He's like stalking around. I will say the camera he's using to take these pictures does not have a telephoto lens on it. So he's basically taking like wide angle shots of the whole scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Trent, we're assuming he's doing private investigation work, but you wouldn't know that from watching this episode. You would just have to know.
He's not wearing his karate gi. He's wearing a leather jacket. So he's private investigator here. Come on now.
Sure. So he's following this couple that are in like this Corvette, and the couple goes into this warehouse building, and he's like, oh, I can't get photos anymore. Then we see him look up to the roof of the building, and the next second he's leaping like Batman across the rooftops.
Oh yeah. And the shots are hilarious. He's just like pops out of nowhere.
He's like, oh, here's an opening for me to look down into the warehouse.
Naturally.
Yeah. And he sees the guy who just went in unloading an arms deal into a truck with a bunch of like goons.
Yeah. So fortunately, he's got his buddy Carlos, who's a Dallas cop on speed dial.
Yep. And he's the second half of
the Sons of Thunder,
which for people who don't know was a short-lived spinoff of Walker, Texas Ranger, but they are in a lot of Walker episodes as well.
Mm-hmm. And, Carlos, he's a cop, so he's not doing anything else.
Trent calls him, and it seems like he was there 2 seconds later, right?
Yeah, and Trent was already back down on the ground, right?
Yeah, Trent left the rooftop to go back down on the ground to meet Carlos.
Yeah.
I think I know what's going on here, guys. They didn't have any time to fill in all the blanks here because we had to watch them play horseshoes for 5 minutes at the beginning of the episode.
Okay.
Clearly, that's where the priorities are at.
Well,
worth it.
Just to clear
worth
it out. Yeah.
So Carlos gets there, and Trent's like, hey, man, you guys see this? And so they both go back up on the roof again. And Carlos now sees, oh, they're unloading drugs. I can call in the police. And Trent's like, no, man, they're about to leave.
It's like, we don't have time for backup. To that, I would say, why didn't you just call the police in the first case?
Yeah, you would think.
All right. I'm also going to throw it out here. This is probably why the Sons of Thunder series did not do well, is they did not get their details straight. Carlos would never be up on that rooftop because he's afraid of heights. Have they forgotten their own character development?
That's right. From the episode Sons of Thunder.
He never would have made it up that rooftop. Come on now.
Well, actually, do you remember how that episode ended? Sons of Thunder Part 2, how that ended?
Do you think he overcame his fear?
He overcame his fear of heights, Evan. So,
well,
on you. Damn you, Evan. Damn you to hell for not acknowledging Carlos's, progress.
I'll say he overcame his fear of heights at one point, but he was still terrified at the end of that episode and wanted to get down. So
anyway, we don't want backup to arrive. We just want to see Trent and Carlos knock some skulls together, and that's what they do here.
Yeah, I mean, it's an arms deal. So naturally, these two guys go in to bust the arms deal unarmed.
Yeah, they pretty much knock a bunch of guys out, and then Carlos goes after one guy, and then the couple that Trent was trailing runs to their Corvette, and Trent goes after them and catches them outside.
He does some serious ninja kicking, and he's got the guy pretty much incapacitated. But then the woman grabs a gun and holds it up against Trent. He uses his sly skills, and he's all like, well, what would this guy's wife think about that? And she's like, wait, he's married? And let me tell you, quite humorous.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And she trains the gun on her, I guess, boyfriend. And Trent uses that moment to knock the gun out of her hand. And the guy's like, oh, man, just give her back the gun. I'm a dead man walking anyway.
Pretty dark.
Trent does some amazing karate moves. He does like a backflip in this, right? It was hilarious.
Oh yeah. The guy catches his leg and then he does a backflip while also kicking the dude's face.
It's so good. It was good.
A few roundhouses with the slow-mo instant replay
I was
effect.
satisfied. It made up for the horseshoes.
So Walker and Trevette and Alex are visiting, I guess, the town where
Andy got pulled over.
Where Andy blew up. And
and his girlfriend, I guess, lived there, which is why he was stopping there.
Right. The name of that town is Mournful. The town does not exist. It's not a real town. They took some real poetic license with the name of the town.
Mournful, Texas.
Very sad.
Yep. And as they pull up, the sheriff and his deputy are creeping on Andy's fiance in the restaurant, basically telling her that she wants to go to some roadhouse somewhere where she'd get much better tips because of her physique, if you will.
It sounded like it might also be
Sleazy.
some kind of brothel. But
Perhaps.
they don't go there. But, it's on the up and up.
Yeah, I think it's called the $6 million Man, but I'm just throwing it out there. And the Rangers show up, and, the sheriff puts on his friendly sheriff face.
Right.
And,
welcome to town, Rangers. How can I be of assistance?
yeah. So then they go into his office, which is, the sheriff's office is pretty dope. It's got a stuffed rattlesnake on one of the file cabinets. So,
Yeah.
Right.
that's how you know you're in Texas. He's basically like, well, we're pretty sure he was high on the drugs because, there was no body or anything because that thing got blown to smithereens. But we did find this. This random snack-sized Ziploc bag of methamphetamines.
Right, yeah. He hands this bag of baking soda over to Trevette, and Trevette presumably opens it up
Sniffs it.
and
That's
tries
one of his
it.
superpowers.
No, he can smell crystal meth. He's like,
Yeah.
it's crystal
He's
meth.
like, it's crystal.
Yeah.
It's crystal, Walker.
It's the real deal. And by that he means diamond crystal table salt.
There you go.
So they're like, all right, I guess we take you for your word. And so the Rangers leave. And as they leave,
The deputy goes over to Lee Majors, the sheriff, and is like, oh, man, I was a little nervous there.
he's like, man, you handled them Rangers slicker than new corn through an old goose.
No, he didn't say that, did he?
He did.
Oh, my
yeah.
He did.
How did I miss that?
Oh.
And Lee Majors is like, no body, no autopsy, no questions. End of story. But it's not the end of story. These are not your typical Texas Rangers.
Yeah, this is Walker. He's going to be in the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame.
He's there already as somebody else.
Tour
but
guide.
Yeah.
Tour guide. But
Well, yeah, okay.
That too.
but can we go over this? New corn through an old goose?
Slicker than new corn through an old goose.
What the hell? Does
So-
that mean?
I'm assuming an old goose's inner workings maybe aren't as good as a younger goose. So
That
it's
cob just slides right through.
I guess the corn just comes right out solid.
Ugh.
What about an old corn through an old goose?
It probably
Look,
wouldn't
man,
come out as nice.
I don't know. This is a Texasism. We haven't had one of these for a while since Swan Song,
Okay.
right?
Oh.
Wasn't there? There was one in that one.
Well, there was a guy who was like, I'd crawl up his butt and out his mouth for that kind of green.
Yes,
what he
this
said.
this is in the same realm as that. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Well, it's like corn going through someone's digestive system. So I wonder if this episode was written by the same person.
I
Because
could have been.
they've got some sort of digestive fetish.
Could be. We're lingering on it too. So
I just couldn't.
Yeah,
It's
really
just
weird.
it's so savory. Okay, let's move on here.
super gross. All right. So Walker and Co. Obviously they got to do their due diligence. So they visit this bridge.
Where Andy blew up.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about earlier, where they had the carcass of the exploded truck that is now down in the riverbed.
But the best is they show this shot of Trevette, Walker, and Alex peeking over the side of this bridge down to the water where the truck is. And then it cuts to them down in the water by the truck. And you're like, okay. And then they go back up to the bridge after inspecting. And they're like, I don't know. Something doesn't add up here. I think we got to go into town and start asking around. And then we get this weird zoom because, mind you, they came back to their truck, walking up the bridge towards their truck. Then we pan back to where presumably they were walking, and there's a deputy there spying on them.
And he heard everything they said.
Yeah, and he's like, they aren't off the trail yet, you know?
I mean, well, how many times have we seen that shot in this TV show, though? Someone in broad daylight creeping in a bush nearby.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I laughed because it literally panned over, and he's like in the bramble.
No, he's like hanging. He's like hanging over the guardrail. He's quite obvious.
Yeah. Big old 10-gallon hat.
Right, in his uniform. It seems like something isn't right in this town, and obviously we know that. But you know,
Walker's on the trail.
So they go and visit the truck garage. You know, it's the only truck garage in town, and they meet two extras that could only be described as Walker Texas Ranger extras, right?
No, Walker bad guys.
Yeah, for sure.
So
for
good.
sure. There's like a scrawny, wiry looking, scraggly dude, and then just like an 8-foot tall beast of a man wearing like a baseball cap.
Yeah.
And overalls.
Who
Yeah.
didn't say any, he doesn't have any dialogue. He's just there to be
None.
like a wild card.
He's a country bumpkin.
Oh yeah. That's the guy who just like single-handedly lifts the engines out of the big rigs.
Right. So Walker, Alex, and Trevette all go up to him and say, hey, we're trying to get some information here about Andy, who you might have heard he blew up recently. And he drove his big rig, and he probably had it come through here to get fixed because you're the only shop in this area. And they hold up a picture of Andy, and they're like, I don't know nothing, Ranger. Walker's like, take a closer look, and hands him the photo of.
He's like, this is Sheriff Bellstown. Texas Rangers and assistant district attorneys ain't got no sway here.
Yeah, and then he takes the picture, and then he tears it up in front of him, which is pretty badass.
He's in balls, yeah.
Yeah, in front of Walker, he doesn't know what he's messing with here.
Well,
He
Walker
finds
doesn't
out.
know what he's talking about either because he claims that picture is evidence.
Yeah. Well, you just destroyed evidence.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. I guess Walker's like, now that you've torn that up, I have to send Trevette down to Kinko's to get it printed out again.
Right. And Trevette's like, you better pick that up and tape it back together again, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Then the scrawny guy, he basically mails in some punches. He's like, I'm winding up for a big punch, and then gets completely wasted.
Yeah, and then Walker sends it return to sender. So
Absolutely.
and Trevette gets some punches in too with the big guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Pretty good fight, and Alex is just kind of just like standing there watching two officers of the law just beat up people.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's the assistant district attorney, but
Dude,
I
it's
guess this is how
season
done.
7. She's seen this enough.
Yeah,
She's like, I guess this is just how things happen.
Right. Like she's been lost in the wilderness and seen Walker fight off a cannibal and a bear. So, I mean, I think at this point she's seen it all.
Yeah.
So they dismantle these two guys, and Trevette's always like, why do I always get the big one? And Walker's like, I guess you're lucky.
Crap on Trevette for the third time in the episode.
Yep. At least. Yeah. Again, they put together the details pretty good, and Alex is like, how did they know I was an assistant district attorney? And Walker's like, well, I guess the sheriff talked to all them. We got to find someone who's not afraid of the sheriff. And so they go down to Border Patrol. He's a federal officer, not a town officer. And I will say that for having a really cheap Border Patrol hat, it looks like they just slapped it together. This Border Patrol agent's legit. And he gives him the real skinny. He corroborates, Andy. So he was a great guy. And he obviously was not under the influence because the federal officer would have noticed. Didn't have any contraband because the officer checked over his rig before he left. So
Right. Something's happening in Mournful. That's where all the bad seeds go. And they're like, well, what about the sheriff? And he's like, well, he's the king of it all.
at which point we get another sketchy shot of the sheriff rolling down his window, watching them through some binoculars.
Which they do a really good job with Lee Majors adding to, like, he's always watching. there's kind of that tension that they weave through this 40-minute episode. They do a pretty good job with that with him.
So the sheriff's all like, man, these Rangers have overstayed their welcome. And the deputy's like, I know what to do, Sheriff. So that's like, oh man, what's going to happen? Are they going to blow them up too?
Right.
So it's all right. The tension's really building, so we get a little bit of levity here, and we get some hijinks between Carlos and Trent.
We flash to CD's Bar and Grill, and Carlos and Trent are hanging out at the bar. I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. It seemed like a little change up, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I was wondering because we had Trent and Carlos earlier in the episode. That story just went away, so it's good to see him come back.
Yeah. So Carlos basically has hooked Trent up with a date.
Unbeknownst to him.
Right. And Trent's like, well, this is a blind date then? And Carlos is like, look, man, there's this girl. She's clearly the one. And, I mean, we know at this point we've seen enough of Carlos and Trent to know that Carlos, womanizer. All right.
Yeah.
No, ladies, man.
Yeah. I mean, in this episode, he doesn't have the hair, but he will have the hair.
Yeah, well,
Trust us.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay.
Yeah, he just hasn't found the right product yet.
Which is longer hair and a Camaro, I think. But anyways, he's basically hooking Trent up with his date's sister.
Right.
And they show up, and joke's on Carlos because they're twins.
Right. And he goes over to the girl that he has the hots for and says, oh, so good to see you. And she's like, he got the wrong twin. And he's like, I knew that.
Classic twin humor, you know?
Classic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he marked her hand after that.
As they're, talking up the twins and whatnot, during their breakfast date,
yeah, when are they meeting over there?
They're drinking coffee prior to the women showing up. So I'm assuming it's a brunch date.
They're having brunch at CD's?
Yes, that's a date. It's a hot date. Yeah, because CD comes around and fills up their cups with coffee as they're talking before.
Wow. Okay.
So it's breakfast at CD's, man. It's a hot date.
What do you think he has on the menu for brunch?
Coffee.
No eggs, Benny?
No, I think it's coffee and peanuts.
He may,
In the shell.
he might do like a over easy egg with chili on top. I could see that.
Gross.
He just throws a whole egg into the chili. Shell and all.
Yeah, he cooks the egg in the chili.
That's a Texas shakshuka, I think is what that's called. So yeah, anyways, while they're having their date, Walker actually calls Carlos.
On his cell phone.
Yeah, from the Border Patrol. And he's like, Carlos, are you up to anything? And Carlos is like, Trent is actually macking on both of these women. And
yeah, he looks over and he's like,
lost cause.
Exactly. Like Trent's over there flirting with both the twins. It's looking like things are going to go good for Trent with both twins. And these are the thoughts going through Carlos's head as he talks to Walker. And he goes, no, I'm not doing anything, Walker. So he got Walker blocked.
Yeah, pretty Walker blocked.
Walk blocked.
Right. So Walker wants Carlos to basically take a helicopter and meet them in Mournful, which
to the Mexican border.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of ridiculous.
And, the Texas Rangers, they kind of do their own thing, but they're a smaller organization than, say, the Dallas Police, right? Do they have a helicopter at their beck and call?
I think Walker does, though. Like, how many politicians and everyone else has, like, Walker saved? Like, he's got a million favors he can call in.
He's always got a helicopter
waiting. At any time. Yeah.
Okay.
Surprised they don't show the helicopter in this episode, though.
Well,
yeah,
they use the budget elsewhere, as we'll get to.
Yeah.
So they can just like imply that there's a helicopter, and that's kind of almost as good.
That's
somehow.
right.
We didn't want to watch the whole 3-hour ride.
No, I'd rather watch Horseshoes. So while Carlos is on the phone, Trent has got some real great conversation going where he's just asking them if they like to dance, right?
Right.
Now, you can edit this out, but here's my question. After Carlos leaves, how quickly does Trenton then go? Remember, he's the son of a pastor here. How quickly does he go? So have I told you about your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?
Wait, so you think that Trent kind of muddled the whole thing up with the twins by bringing Jesus into the situation, into the threesome?
Guaranteed.
Yeah, he could have waited till afterwards to bring Jesus into the thing.
Nope.
Okay.
Not Trent. Carlos would. Trent, no.
Yeah. So Carlos would have been like, next morning, he'd be like, all right, ladies, let's go to church. That's what you're saying?
Maybe.
Oh, wait, but that's how he gets rid of the girls, right? That's how he rolls through all the girls so quick. It's his patented technique.
That could be it.
Okay.
Let me introduce you to my really good friend. His name's Pastor Roscoe Jones.
Oh, man. All right. So definitely leaving that in. Okay. So.
Anyways, back in Mournful, Walker, Trevette, and Alex are at what seems to be the only restaurant in town.
Strip mall diner.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Where Andy's fiance works, unbeknownst to them. Because earlier they were like, oh, well, we'll have to look for Andy's fiance to see if we can get any information. Funnily enough, nobody had ever met Andy's fiance, not even his mother.
True.
So Walker and Trevette and Alex have no idea she works at this restaurant. So they get to this restaurant, and there's a welcoming committee for them.
Yeah, our boys from the repair shop, right? And a few more.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
So much flannel.
Yeah. And I'm really glad to see those two goons again and come back for more.
They're like, well, Rangers aren't welcome here or something. And then Trevette and Walker, I guess you could say playfully refer to each other as Ranger Walker and Ranger Trevette. I guess to mock the guy.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a reverse mock. Maybe.
Right. He's like, are you mocking me? And to that I would say, I have the same question.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
I'm not sure.
They're really not?
I guess. I don't know.
But then to that question, they're just like, oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah. Fight ensues, and,
right.
you know.
And again, Walker and Trevette don't throw the first punch, but the moment a fist is in motion, Walker's fist moves faster. Let's
yeah,
just
I
say
mean,
that.
the guy winds
goon
up again.
Just winds up way back. Yeah. He gives him about 5 seconds for a while.
And this fight was amazing, was it not?
Yeah, there's like some throat punching and roundhouse kicking and
to the face.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's a real deal.
It's kind of extended.
And totally unnecessary, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Like these guys came out of nowhere just to be like, oh, yeah, remember us? We're going to fight you again.
Yeah. Well, the deputy sent him there.
You think?
Yeah. This is the I know what to do, Sheriff. The deputy.
That was it?
Yep.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I assume when that guy said that was it, I was like, oh, he's going to kill him.
Right. Look, man, it's small town.
Yeah.
Okay, small town.
My mistake.
and honestly, what Texas Rangers know karate? So
yeah, it was just their unlucky day.
All right. They clearly, it's such a small town, they'd never heard of Walker, and they didn't know who they were dealing with.
I find that hard to believe. I mean, his reputation does precede him everywhere.
For sure.
Yes, he is the ranger with a helicopter on beck and call. So
right.
Alex, she's watching this whole thing from the porch of the restaurant, and then after they're done, she's like, "Do you guys feel better?" And they're like, Walker and Trevette are like, "Yeah."
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you feel better, Ranger Walker? Yeah. Do you feel better, Ranger Trevette? Yeah.
That was, again, I don't know if that was supposed to be funny or if it was like, do these guys have like a mental deficiency or something? What is going on?
I don't care because they beat people up in between the jokes. So
it was good.
It's all good.
It was
Yeah.
good. And so then they were like, well, we're hungry, so let's go into this restaurant to grab something to eat.
And Lupe, who is Andy's fiance, actually serves them, but she doesn't introduce herself or anything.
She's a little hesitant.
Very nervous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, because the sheriff's watching everything all the time, she's got to be careful.
He really is. Trevette gets the check, and I thought for sure she wrote something on the check because he looks at the check,
right,
and then he hands it to Walker, and I'm like, oh, she wrote something on the check, but instead it was a joke, and they just hand it to Alex and ditch her with the bill. We're gonna lure the wolf into the hen house. Alex, you go find his girlfriend.
And all she had to do was pay the bill.
Yep, pretty much. And she's like, oh, I'm Lupe. And she calls herself Lupe. Everyone in the episode calls her Loopy. So
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It's like, it's insulting. You know, I see the sheriff might have been doing it to antagonize Andy earlier in the episode, but Alex calls her Loopy.
Yeah, no, she's like, oh, hi, Alex. I'm Lupe. And Alex is like, oh, hi, Loopy.
Yeah.
So she's like, you have to follow me, Alex. And so she takes Alex off. Meanwhile, Walker and Trevette go back to the border crossing where they're going to lay their trap. And as they're laying the trap down with this border patrol agent and Carlos, there's a really sketchy truck driver who sets off some red flags. And before they can further inspect his big rig, he speeds off.
They're standing there with the border patrol agent we saw prior, and he's like, we're going to get one soon, don't worry. And we're like, oh, he's talking about getting a truck with contraband, which presumably would be contraband that the sheriff would want.
All the law enforcement officers, including Texas Rangers and the Border Patrol agents, start walking towards the guy's truck, and he freaks out and speeds off. And a chase ensues.
Yeah, it's super easy to get away when you're driving an 18-wheeler, too.
Oh, my God. Yeah, like you'd think at the border they'd have one of those strips that kind of like...
Yeah, just pop up the things.
With the spikes that prevent you from driving over it.
But
Nope.
he just gets out and starts just jetting it in this big rig, and Walker on foot starts running after it. I'm like, is Walker going to go after him on foot?
Yeah, I have my fingers crossed there.
But, oh, no, he gets into the Dodge Ram, and we're like, car chase. I mean, there were already so many things on our checklist checked off so far in this episode, like explosion off the bat.
Fight, roundhouse kicks. Yeah.
This is not a car chase. It's a truck chase, all right? Truck after truck.
Okay. This sequence is unbelievable. Evan, get into this.
Oh, my God. Fantastic. So, it's the classic pursuit, except that it's a big rig that somehow went from 0 to 60 in like under 2 minutes. I don't know how. It's like, going against oncoming traffic. And then Walker tries to pull up next to it and he forces him off the road. And as we now know, one of the stunt drivers loved hitting mailboxes. Hits this giant bank of mailboxes.
Yes.
Trevette is in the passenger seat too. So he also got in the truck and he's along for the ride.
After being forced to drive through a bunch of mailboxes, which hurt Walker because that's like a federal offense, right?
Yeah,
destroying the mail.
Totally, and it hurt the Dodge Ram's feelings, if not its body.
Definitely didn't hurt the Ram, but yeah. It gets serious, so Walker takes his hat off, and that's when you know something's happening.
Yeah.
And as he's staring straight forward and gunning the accelerator, he says to Trevette, take the wheel. And Trevette's like, what? And Walker's like, I said take the wheel. And no sooner than he says that does he just hoist his body out the driver's side window onto the roof of his truck.
So good,
He must have put it on
cruise control, right?
Yeah,
I thought that. Yeah, because Trevette couldn't put his feet over there. So he had cruise control. This is is like a
That's
tricked
nice.
out Dodge Ram. This is a base model.
Yeah. So Walker basically surfs on the hood of his car. And
Dodge Ram going like 60.
And there are enough establishing shots of like Chuck Norris with things moving past him to make this seem hilarious and awesome.
I know. It wasn't quick. This was prolonged.
As it should be. Are you kidding? So when the truck driver realizes what's going on, he actually stops short. And so Walker sort of hits the truck in front and then sort of falls back onto the hood of the car. But I rewatched this. It totally looks like the stunt double. He's going to fall under the Ram.
Yikes.
Ooh, yeah.
Like he falls forward and rolls. Anyways, with some clever editing, he's back on the hood of the car again. And then he jumps onto the back of the Mack truck and he jumps like
it was like a Spider-Man jump.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right?
But he's like way too low to actually catch the truck too.
Yeah, that kind of threw me a bit.
I was kind of expecting him to be like dragging on the ground holding the bumper, but instead he was on the back of the door.
Right.
Yeah.
This giant big rig. now.
Didn't
Right.
Trevette look like, I just ran him over. Like,
A couple times.
oh boy, I killed the boss.
Right. And so you're like, okay, well, now he's on the back of the truck. It's all good from here. But no, the truck door swings open
Right, with Walker on it.
with
right?
Walker on it. And now he's like facing oncoming traffic. Trevette goes into the opposite lane, and then Walker's able to kick off of the hood of his truck just in time to avoid getting pancaked by an oncoming truck.
Right.
Then he climbs up to the top of the truck.
Top of the big rig, and he's walking along it. And again, while this thing is all driving at like at least 60 miles an hour, I mean faster probably, scales down the side, and we've seen this a number of times. This is how he pulls over a big rig. I think he's done this to a big rig before in some fashion, right?
I think when he went from the airplane to the truck, or when he went, I don't know, he went from something to an airplane.
Was to the car, but there was a helicopter to a semi truck, I think. Right?
Yeah,
the
that
airplane was
must have
just
been
the convertible.
There's a lot of vehicular transference here.
Right.
This was a good one.
This was an excellent vehicular transference.
This was a top, very, very high up there.
Yeah, totally. And so he scales down the side, pulls his gun, and tells the driver, pull over. So the guy at gunpoint stops the truck.
Easy.
I don't know if I would call it easy, but
For Walker,
it was
it's easy.
it was excellent to watch. It's why we watch Walker Texas Ranger here. This was the prime example.
Absolutely. So yeah, pretty fantastic chase there. And meanwhile, we cut back to Lupe, who's taking Alex into this back alley, and they're like seriously creeping.
Right, and I was wondering what she was going to show him, because this actually blindsided me. Did you guys see this next plot twist coming? Because I did not.
Oh no, I did not either. Not at all. This is actually,
It actually got me.
yeah, it definitely got me.
Yeah.
Which for Walker is pretty surprising.
So the twist, we find out when Lupe takes Alex to the sketchy back room somewhere, we see Andy's still alive with like bandages all over him and presumably
Like burns all over his body.
yeah. It's like
Alex is like, you should take him to a hospital, and she's like, he won't let me. It's like,
right, yeah, because the sheriff, he knows everything. He knows that once he goes to a hospital, he's a dead man. So
Well, like,
the
at this
county.
point, how long's he been in there? Like a week?
I don't know.
I guess if he's not dead, he's fine, right?
he really loves her sandwiches.
Oh yeah, I bet.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's living on those sandies.
Yeah. She says that after the explosion, he crawled out of the water like Anakin Skywalker. Did he make his way home? She said.
He found her. Yeah.
I don't understand how that's possible in his condition, but good on him, right? Because he looked pretty haggard.
Look, he's a good boy. All right.
Good things happen to good people.
Yep. So just as Alex is like, well, Walker and Trevette, they'll find us, and then we'll figure out what to do. Boom, the door kicks in, and the sheriff's got them at gunpoint.
Yeah. Alex is kind of like, well, they may not matter if you kill them. Talking about Lupe and Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got weird there for a minute.
Very weird. Very weird.
But if you kill me, a district attorney,
Yeah.
then some heads are going to roll.
Right.
And then something amazing happens here.
Yeah, I did not see this one coming either.
Me neither. I thought for sure she was just going to be taken into custody by him.
And Evan, you've actually brought up this fact before. Alex, of all the years of being with Walker owns a dojo. He teaches people karate and all this stuff. You would think something would rub off on Alex.
She's been kidnapped how many times at this point?
Right. You'd think he'd teach her basic self-defense. Right. And we had yet to see it.
Well, we still don't see it in this episode because this is way more than basic. She freaking roundhouse kicks his gun out of his hand.
Yeah.
Then she throws a piece of the wall onto him and then runs out of the room.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Amazing.
I was
just like, she abandoned the other two people there. Like,
She did.
Yeah, like, what
And
to
he-
stop them from just killing them both?
Right.
Like,
And the sheriff picks up his gun, and instead of shooting the two people left behind, he pursues her instead.
she must have known that he would do that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't let her get away.
Right. So Alex is on the lam now. She broke free. Impressive. Excellent.
It was awesome.
Now that's character development, right? Finally.
Sure.
She's now on the run, trying to escape the sheriff and his deputies, and the sting operation is underway, and Carlos is now sitting in for the driver that they just pulled
Arrested.
over.
Yeah.
They end up at the Mournful Bridge, and they're suspicious of him.
The deputy's there to make the collection. He's kind of like, you're not the guy we usually deal with. And Carlos is like, oh, he got sick. Do you want to make this deal happen or not? And the deputy's like, oh, yeah, I'll get you the money, and let me just inspect the goods first. So
You'd expect the goods are like drugs or like stolen
big
electronics or
boxes of
something. Right.
Something that requires a truck.
Right.
And instead we get like a single little diamond. Is that what that's like? I mean, it's a big diamond, right?
There was a whole like bag of diamonds.
A handful of diamonds, right?
Sure. But
So I looked it up. Apparently diamond smuggling is like legit. That's a thing.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. But do you need a semi truck to do it?
it's funny because, yeah, he doesn't have like the diamonds in his cabin. Yeah. He opens the back doors and his whole big rig is filled with boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
And he pulls out this small felt pouch that has a bunch of diamonds in it. And the deputy's like, oh, yeah, those are nice. And he pulls one out and looks at it in the sun. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is good. And then he's like, all right, well, here's the standard payment. And he hands over a wad of cash to Carlos. The deputy's like, aren't you going to count that, man? And Carlos is like, oh, no, I can count it down at the station. And the deputy's like, and as he is just acting like, what is happening?
The deputy got taken out by the metal door swinging open and Rangers bursting forth.
And we get yet another fight.
Yeah.
Pretty epic fight here, too, for sure.
So the Rangers make the bust.
And then Walker grabs the main deputy, and the sheriff is trying to get in touch with the deputy over the radio.
Right.
And Walker makes him not break character while he responds.
The sheriff's like, come meet me back in town because the assistant district attorney just got away. At which point, Walker overhears this and jumps into the deputy's patrol car and just guns it. And we're like, yes.
Back in town, Alex is trying to evade all the patrol cars that have scrambled around town trying to find her. A couple of the deputies see her, and so they pursue her down an alley, and she climbs up this chain link fence. They grab her, and then she kicks them in the face.
It continues climbing over the fence like a boss and jumps down.
By the time she gets over the fence, Walker's on the other side. She doesn't know that he's Walker because he's in a patrol car, but she runs off.
And Walker intersects the two guys climbing over the chain link fence that were after her and just decks them. Yeah. And so now he's like, oh, man, I got to go protect my girl. And
so the sheriff, of course, he's always creeping everywhere, encounters Alex and grabs her, and he's like, man, I'm going to take you out. But before I do, I want to teach you a lesson. And it's like he's about to punch her. But before he can even come close to punching her, Walker destroys him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And now we get the $6 million man versus Walker, Texas Ranger.
See, I was not holding out for this fight because I just know
he's kind of old, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, with with a bit of inflation, I think he was more like the $6,000 man.
Yeah, well, maybe a 60,000, but definitely not 6 million. Yeah.
But this fight was awesome.
It was good. It was good.
This is what the fight at the end of the pilot should have been like between Chuck Norris and Marshall Teague.
Right.
Now, granted, I don't think Lee Majors landed a single blow on Walker, but that's fine. Just him getting back up like 6 times to take repeated roundhouse kicks is exactly what we want.
Completely, yeah.
Chuck Norris is throwing a roundhouse kick in the guy's face, and he gets down on the ground, and you're like, okay, he's down for the count. And then Lee Majors gets back up, and then Chuck Norris nails the guy again with repeated multiple angle roundhouse kicks. Finally, after a penultimate kick, he's down. But the fight was great.
Oh, yeah. Kind of quintessential Walker fight right there. The final boss, the boss battle.
Exactly. It was great.
And, after that guy's down, of course, all of their problems are gone, right?
Right.
Flash forward, presumably...
It has to be weeks, right? Or months?
I would think it would have to be months, but they don't say, right? And we are, I guess, at Andy and Lupe's wedding, And it's
Oh, yeah.
at the Hope House.
Hell yeah, man. That place, it's everything.
And the MC, it's Alex. She's emceeing the wedding.
Well, she did save their lives.
Did she, though? She's
She
like,
abandoned them.
I mean,
funny story. These two were held at gunpoint, and I told a man that he could kill them.
and I ran away.
She's like,
as
they won't
fast
be
as I
missed,
could.
but if you kill me.
I know. It's true.
She was just trying to leverage with the guy, but it did come off a little racist. Okay.
Well, yeah, let's just leave that at the door.
But, it's all good. She gives a toast for the wedding, and we cut to Walker, Trent, and Carlos. Carlos kind of makes eyes with the girl across the way. He goes over, talks to the girl, and pretty much Trent and Walker look on and just laugh.
Freeze frame.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, that about sums up this episode. We'd love to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen, who's been drawing the amazing Walkerstrations that you see on our social media. Be sure to check out his other work on Instagram at @ImaginationRunAmok. When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate On the Border on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse Roulette episode ranking, the complete results of which are available on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't go away. Pull her over, Haas.
Evening, Deputy CW. What seems to be the problem?
Bobby, my boy, I heard you be driving through these parts. What brings you and your rig through my mournful Texas?
Oh, shucks, Sheriff. You know the wee boys at Roundhouse Roulette have pledged to deliver the light of Walker, Texas Ranger, to the world. And that's just what I'm doing here now. You caught me on the way to El Paso.
Well, ain't that all high and mighty? I could get you 16 times the followers if you just recap Jared Padalecki's Walker instead.
Oh, no, Sheriff. We never do a thing like that. There's only one true Walker, and that's the one that ends in comma, Texas Ranger. Speaking of which, if you listeners would like to join us in our mission, please share the pod with a friend or leave us a kind review wherever you get your podcasts. Likewise, if you'd like to help us keep the lights on at headquarters, check out our shirts, posters, and freshly cleaned vintage action figures at roundhouseroulette.com or join the fun on our Patreon page. Most importantly, though, we thank you for listening.
Suit yourself there, boy. Enjoy wallowing in obscurity. I bid you safe passage to El Paso.
Hey, did Deputy CW just mount an explosive underneath my truck bed?
Nothing to see here, Bobby. Merely checking the undercarriage for any loose wires.
Alrighty then. You all have a pleasant evening.
Son, you just chose to do a podcast on the wrong Walker. Hand me that detonator, CW.
Welcome back. They come for the podcast and they stay for the ads, I'm sure.
Oh,
All right. Well, what did you guys think of this episode?
I like this one, guys. We had the just general action.
yeah.
We had explosion. We had Lee Majors. All right.
Yeah. The $6 million man.
The same. We had a vehicular transference. We had some roundhouse kicks, and we had CD dancing. So I'm hovering around 7 and 8, and I think I'm going to lean, after talking about it here with you boys tonight, I'm going to hit an 8 on this one.
Nice,
Okay.
Bob. Nice.
Yeah.
Evan, read us off the stats for this episode because it needs to be done.
Fantastic stat line. Number of fights, 5. Number of roundhouse kicks delivered solely by Walker, 3.
Yeah.
Number of explosions, 1. And let's face it, epic. They blew up a
good
semi on a bridge.
Good one.
And 1 vehicle chase. Also, credits roll till 15 minutes, 13 seconds in this episode. So come on now. It's got it all.
Yeah, we're hitting good numbers across the board.
I'm in a complete agreement. There was nothing revolutionary in this episode. And that's what makes it so great. So, I think, if someone were to see just one episode of Walker, this is certainly a contender for sure. I thought this episode was awesome before the car chase, but that car chase just escalated out of nowhere. And to see Chuck Norris, see him just haul himself out the window, hilarious. I'm right with you. I think this is at least an 8. I'll go an 8 on this one too. This is a great episode.
Yeah, until the truck, I was like, this has definitely been fun. But then when he like literally is surfing on the front of the Dodge, chasing at high speed and jumps off the hood like Spider-Man, like literally like Spider-Man. I was thinking going into our conversation about this, like a 7, honestly. Blown Apart, I gave a 9, and that was just like a wild ride.
That's
you know what I
another
mean?
level.
The whole episode was just a wild ride. This, had a few little stops along the way. So yeah, I think you're right. 8.
Unanimous decision. I like it.
Nice. Well, that gives this episode a Roundhouse rating of straight up 8 boots to the face. And I think we can all agree that if we ever make our way down to Texas, we have to find the Hope House. In the meantime, let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. And when we come back, we'll spin that Roundhouse Roulette wheel and select our next juicy episode. All right, we're back. Bob, you gonna spin that thing?
Season 8, Episode 15, Thunderhawk.
Thunderhawk. I love the name. Oh, boy.
Walker hunts for a missing sonic weapon, only to discover it has been snatched from the thieves who stole it. Yeah, so apparently thieves stole a sonic weapon, and then it was stolen from them.
Oh, boy.
So he's got 2 people to chase down.
Double
What a
whammy.
mess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope you'll join us next time when we share our reactions to Season 8, Episode 15, Thunderhawk. In the meantime, share your opinions with us on Facebook and on Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at RoundhousePod. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your fine podcast. Maybe we'll even read your review on the podcast. So,
Yeah, who knows? I mean, we will.
I think
promise.
we will.
Yeah, we've only got 3, so odds are we'll read the 4th.
Oh, man. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and until next time,
May
May the eyes of the
Eyes of
Ranger
be
be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.